Good afternoon, Tom. Today, I would like you to discuss the Exploring Consciousness audio program you're offering on Soundwise. We've done 19 immersives with you, and people had gotten so much benefit out of those that we thought we would like to offer it to the public. This program is a combination of some of your best presentations on attaining and holding point consciousness, communicating, accessing the database, communicating with the larger consciousness system, and remote viewing and healing, things like that. All of the aspects of consciousness that you can do once you attain that important point consciousness state. So if you can go into a detail about these different things you offer on our Exploring Consciousness program, I think it would be very important for people to know that they can now do this themselves.
Okay. Well, first, very quickly, tell you its origin of these programs. I say in my books many times that if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. And I tell people that they need to have their own experience in consciousness. Well, then they turned around and asked me, would you teach us about consciousness? Well, what that amounts to is, well, you teach us how to do paranormal things, because those are the ways we interact with consciousness, that ways that we can understand, because they also interact with our virtual reality, our physical, what we call the physical universe. So at first I was very hesitant. I didn't want to do that. I was trying to keep that part of it a little quiet so that my relationship with the physicists would be on solid ground, because physicists don't like the paranormal. It's one of those things that upset them, because they know that there's lots of research done and that the paranormal really does exist, but it shouldn't. So that just leaves them in the spot that they obviously don't know everything because it exists and they have no explanation for it. So paranormal is not a good subject to bring up around physicists. They generally get a little snappy with you if you mention it. So anyway, I developed this course to teach these paranormal things. I did it in such a way is that I'm not only teaching you how to do them and then helping you actually do them, but I'm also telling you how they work, why they exist, getting data out of the database. What database? You can tell somebody, oh, the Hindus call that the Akashic records, but that doesn't help anybody very much. They can look that up, but the Hindus can't tell you how that database got there or whatever either. They just kind of know that you can get this information non-physically from within consciousness. So they know it exists, but they don't really know so much about why it exists. So I will tell them why it exists. Where did it come from? What kind of data is in it? And how do you go about getting that data? Being able to peruse the data to find what you want, querying the database. Then I help them with techniques. And then after we go over the techniques, I give them a binaural beat tape of my own creation that will help them be able to stay in a good theta state, about 4 hertz theta state, for at least 50 minutes. So these are going to be hour-long sessions. I make them 50 minutes, so 10 minutes we have between them. 10 minutes we have getting ready. 10 minutes we have putting on the headphones and so on. So they're 50-minute sessions. So it's the whole thing. It starts with, here's a paranormal thing, getting data out of the databases. Here's how it works, why it works. Here's how you access it. Here's some of the ways that you can mess it up and get misinformation. Here are the things that most people do wrong. Here are the things that you need to do to get it right. And then we go practice it with a binaural beat. And then we come back and we talk about it. How did you do? What did you get? Remote viewing is actually also getting data out of a database. It's not different. It's just that remote viewers think the database is just about places. They're going to remote view. So it's a place you can go look at, but it's so much more than that. There's so much more data there that has nothing to do with places. You can get all kinds of other information there too. Basically, everything that's possible almost is there. So places are one of the things that are there. So remote viewers tip into that database to see what's going on at a particular place and time. And remote viewers eventually discovered they could remote view the past, and they could remote view the probable future, and they could remote view the dark side of the moon or Alpha Centauri or wherever they wanted. It wasn't a matter of time and space. That when you're in consciousness, there is no space. Okay, consciousness is non-physical. It's not a physical thing. It's a non-physical to us. We avatars here, the humans, Donna and Tom here are avatars. Consciousness is non-physical to us as avatars. Now we have a consciousness component, which is what I call our individuated unit of consciousness, and they make all the choices for this avatar. So in truth, we are just consciousness. That's why we're able to get around in the larger consciousness system, because we really are just a piece of consciousness playing an avatar, making all the choices for the avatar. So Tom is the avatar. The reason, what I'm telling you and the words that I'm choosing is all done by my consciousness that is telling me what to do, what to say, how to say it. See, that's my consciousness is really this individuated unit of consciousness. You might say the player of the avatar. So I made all these programs to teach how to heal another person with your mind, how to remote view, how to communicate mind to mind, consciousness to consciousness with a person and get information back and forth from that person and to that person, how to get into point consciousness, which is basically the launch pad. Once you get into point consciousness, then that's where we launch into these other things from. How to get data out of the database, all sorts of data. And let's see, how to talk, how to communicate, how to talk to other non-physical and physical beings. So that's what the course was about. And all of these courses, all 19 of them, were made basically in a similar way. You'd come, I teach you about point consciousness. We'd listen to a headset, a tape, binaural beat. You'd experience point consciousness or not. And then you'd talk about it and say, well, I didn't experience it. And I'd help you understand what you'd done that kept you from experiencing it and give you some hints about how you could do better next time. And then we'd go on to the next subject where we'd spend, it's usually one day, one subject, where we spend a day working on, say, healing or remote viewing. That would be a whole day. So we'd spend that whole day with me coaching you. I'm the coach. You're the person trying to learn. And you go experience, you come back, we talk about it. You ask questions. You tell me whether you're successful or not. I tell you, if you're not successful, why you're not successful, what you need to do differently. You go back, we try it again. You come back, we talk. We have a Q&A, we talk about it. So we do that all day long, say on healing or on remote viewing. And then the next day we go on to a different paranormal thing. And then we do that all day. So that's the aspect. So this is like a 5-day course. And in this 5-day course, what you will be getting is the best of all of the 19 courses that I gave.
Tom, you mentioned you were reluctant at first to bring in those paranormal abilities because physicists don't like to admit to the existence of this consciousness element.
Mhm.
However, What they don't understand about you as a physicist and a consciousness researcher is that your book, My Big Toe, is something where you started with consciousness first, as you were a consciousness explorer and a physicist, and you logically derived your theory that way. I think it's very unique and very rare to be both a consciousness explorer and a physicist. And this is how you could bring the science and the consciousness in unification that way. So I think that's an important point to make.
Well, yes, I'm alone out here in this, world of books and ideas. I published mine in 2003 in February. So that's been over 20 years now, and there's still nothing like it. So it is a very singular thing to get someone who is very much aware of physics. And well, I'm a professional physicist. That's how I pay the bills, was because of the physics I did.
Well,
And
interestingly, you modeled large complex systems for NASA,
mhm.
and that is your acronym for the larger consciousness system that you use in your books that explains consciousness.
So it is a unique collection of abilities. And I ended up being able to develop physics from consciousness, start with consciousness, end up with quantum physics and relativity, which then explains both of those sciences more fundamentally than they are understood now. So it really makes them both more powerful sciences that they are. So right now, quantum physics is seen as a weird physics because the scientists don't understand why it works the way it works. But if you understand consciousness, then the quantum physics you derive is not weird at all. It follows logic. It's very rational, and it's completely understandable. So yes, it's a unique thing. But anyway, back to this program. These various courses that I gave kept getting better and better because lots of things would improve. My explanations would get better with time just because I would find better ways to say things, ways that help people more than other ways that didn't help people as much. So I could learn how to explain these otherwise very difficult concepts. Now, I also improved my binaural beats as I went. Every time I get done with one course, I change them a little bit for the next course, see if I couldn't make them a little more effective. So every course had new words and new binaural beats, if you will. And I'd see how that would work. And I'd take the things that work best and I'd keep those, and I'd drop the things that work least and let those go. So over the time, they got better and better. And the best questions that people had, which prompted the best explanations and answers that I had, all were collected into this one course. Now, these courses cost somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000, depending on the venue and food costs and other things. So it's a rather expensive course. So not everybody can take a week off and spend $1,500 to $2,000 on a course. So we realized that. So this best of the best of all those 19 courses is now available, has been for some time. We've had this available, but we're changing it up a little bit. And it's a very good course. If you have any inclination whatsoever that you'd like to learn to do the paranormal things, if you're a scientist or a physicist and you say paranormal, bah, humbug, that's all hallucination, well, then take this course and you'll find out that you too are hallucinating. You too can do this, because when you take a very complex visual target and you open your mind to it and then you write down what you see, and it's a perfect match for that complex target, okay, now you'll have to decide in your own mind what to call that. Of course, that you did that by accident or that it was a hallucination is like one in a million,
Well, let's give some
because
credit to somebody who actually did that from Caltech, and that is one of the people who is one of the co-authors of your on testing the simulation theory.
Yeah.
He was in the course in California, I believe it was, and was very curious about how all of this worked. You presented a remote viewing target in a box, and he just went along with it and drew it, and it matched exactly the item that was in the box. So that is a serious scientist from Caltech who can
Yeah.
verify that what you're
Yeah, well,
saying is true.
that's the thing. When the paranormal is your own experience, and when you have a picture, it's not just a picture of a gray, cloudy day and nothing in it. That wouldn't be very complicated. But it's a very complex picture that has various peculiar shapes and sizes and things and colors. It's a very particular thing with lots of objects, and you specify it. You can tell from just your mind getting the data out of the database about that particular picture, and it's very accurate. And I know people often kind of get blown away by that because this is just a picture that could be anything, could be anything at all, from a blank canvas to a white dot to a green triangle, could be anything, or a picture of Niagara Falls, or a picture of a cow grazing in a meadow, or a dog peeing on a fire hydrant. These are just pictures that were accumulated as targets, and there's thousands of them, many thousands of them. And what you do is each one has a number, and you get the number. Say, all right, here's picture number 562759, and now you remote view what the picture is associated with that number, and then you type that number back into the computer, and it'll show you the picture, and you can compare it to what you got. So that's the way it works. So out of these 100,000 pictures, you happen to get one, and you nail it. You describe it, a very difficult picture, even very precisely. There's no way you can talk yourself out of that being a fact. It is a fact. You got it right. The probability is probably 1 in 100,000 or 1 in a million or 10 million that you could get all of those aspects of that picture and get them right just because you're a lucky guesser. Because if you look at all the possibilities of what could have been on that picture, well, there's trillions of possibilities of what could have been on that picture, but only one of those possibilities was what was actually on that picture. And if you get it out of those trillions of possibilities, that's hard to do just by guessing. So in any case, these things are not that hard. Of all of the paranormal things, healing with your mind is probably one of the easiest things you can do, because there's so much randomness in biological functions
And
that
uncertainty.
that uncertainty makes it a lot easier for you to have an effect.
The things you're talking about, things you can get evidence for, goes back to if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. But when it is your experience, there's no going back. You have the evidence and then you have that
Yeah.
fact.
And you not only get to do it once, but you get to do it again and again and again and again. That's why we do them, is because it's evidential. That's the whole point. There's no real advantage to remote viewing or healing or that sort of thing in itself. Everything is pretty much the way it is. You don't have to do any of those things. You can live a perfectly wonderful life, grow up, become loved, do all the good things with never doing anything paranormal. The paranormal is not something you need to do, but it is a good practice in order to help you see the bigger picture, because it is evidential. You either get it right or you don't. It's not one of these things that's iffy. You look at the picture, you look what you're drawn, and either you have captured, and you may capture half of it. Well, then that's halfway evidential. You may capture, 90% of it. Well, that's 90% evidential. So it's that kind of thing. Or you may capture every bit of it, every detail of it. But in any case, whatever you get, it's evidence that indeed you are collecting information from somewhere, somehow, that lets you know what the picture is associated with that number out of 100,000 pictures. You see? So that's why we do it, not because gee whiz paranormal,
Right.
but because this allows people to have firsthand experience of mind-to-mind communication, healing, remote viewing, talking to dead people, if you like, exploring what's out there, in the like out of body state.
Tom, it speaks also to establishing that consciousness is fundamental, which is the basis of your CUSAC, your
Absolutely.
Center for the Unification of Science and Consciousness. You're the scientist, you're a consciousness researcher. And at your CUSAC event upcoming in September, we'll have the links below, you will have speakers who are on board and scientists who are on board with consciousness as fundamental. So it's a thing whose time has come. And with this Exploring Consciousness audio program, you have the privilege of taking all of the best information and questions and answers from all of the programs Tom has put on, with, in addition to that, all of the binaural beats that are included, which were developed by his own experience of over 40 years of testing the binaural beat. So it's quite an extraordinary product
Yeah,
for
and these binaural beats, like Donna says, are included. You don't have to buy the binaural beats. They're all included in the price. And you could buy the binaural beats separately. That's an option. They are for sale. But in this case, that's part of they're included. It's part of the price of the Exploring Consciousness. So it's just a really good way to learn how to get around in and experience firsthand the paranormal. Now, I will also tell you that everything paranormal comes through the intuitive channel. You, consciousness, have two channels which you can process information. One is an intellectual channel or a logical channel, and the other is an intuitive channel. All the paranormal things flow through the intuitive channel, not through the logical channel. And that's one of the things you have to understand, So you need to start developing your intuition. Now, as you develop your intuition in order to do these paranormal things, well, you can do normal things with that intuition as well. It'll serve you well if you develop it. It'll tell you, oh, tonight you better take the long way home. And you find out that the short way was all jammed up for 3 hours because of a big, massive automobile wreck. And your intuition will save you like that many times if you just listen to it. So having a good intuition is a good thing. And that's basically what this course teaches, is it teaches you to develop your intuition, and you can use it in all the rest of your life. It's not like, oh, you can just do paranormal things and that's it. You develop your intuition and it will enhance everything else that you do in life because you will be able to intuit things. Now, you might think, yeah, well, intuition's like a gut guess, a hunch. That's not true. Well, that is true if your intuition is totally undeveloped. It is just a guess. It's wrong as much as it's right. It's probably wrong more than it's right. But if you develop your intuition, you will find that your intuition is just as accurate, just as reliable, and just as predictable as your logic. Intuition has lots of information available. You just have to be able to access it. On the other side, logic can only work if you have lots of information. You can't do a complex problem with logic unless you have lots of information that define the problem and all the variables in the problem and so on. So mostly we pretend we're logical when really we're just guessing most of the time. With learning to have access to this database particularly, you can have access to that information you need to be more logical. So the two are supposed to work together. Your intuition and your logical side, your intellectual side, are supposed to work together. So the intuition can pull up the information you need to be logical about a particular subject. And the logic helps the intuition put things together, do the analysis, and come up with results. Otherwise, the intuition just plops the data in front of you and says, there it is. It doesn't try to analyze it or anything else. So if you develop that intuition, then the intuition and the intellect can learn to both use their strengths and depend on the other one for their weakness, because the weakness that one has is the strength that the other one has. So they're a perfect match. So I can't imagine why anyone would not want to develop their intuition. That is a gift worth having, even if you never do anything paranormal with it.
There were
And
many
that's
quotes about Einstein valuing intuition, Steve Jobs valuing it, those people who
sure.
really tapped into the
Yeah,
really important
most of your
information.
artists and your people who are playing music, the best music comes out of an artist's intuition. The best probably paint too comes out of their intuition. Sculpture, all these things, the best work comes when the person is intuitively connected to what it is they're working with, to the art form that they have. If your art is an intellectual process, it's maybe okay, but it's not going to be nearly as good as if it's an intuitive process. Almost everything's that way. You know, if you're whatever you're doing, you're a salesman or you're an executive or you're a writer or you're a policeman, it doesn't matter what you do, but if you have a working, reliable, accurate intuition, you're much better off than if you don't. Buy this course and take it just to develop your intuition is a good thing, because that's what learning to do these paranormal things will do. You can't do the paranormal without developing your intuition. So like I say, that's where all the paranormal exists, is on the intuitive side. So think of the paranormal as exercises, evidential exercises that you can do in the process of developing your intuition. So I think it's probably a must-have course for anybody that want to do this.
It brings you to the ideal
yeah,
balance of who we really are.
yeah,
We are basically consciousness, and as avatars
yeah.
here, that's a
And
perfect balance.
once you buy this course, you can look at it as many times as you want. It's yours. You're not going to get an MP4. You're not going to get an MP3. You're going to get a link. Okay. Just like if you got a book from Audible, you're going to get a link, and you're going to you can put it in your library. And anytime you want to redo this course, you can do it again and again and again. So you can use the course. Each time you do it, you'll get better at it. Your intuition will develop a little bit more. So I'd say, you buy the course, but you don't just do it once in 5 days. You take it as much time as you like. Instead of 5 days, you might want to do it in 5 weeks. Put a week on each one of those things, or 5 months. Or you may want to do it with a half a day on each one of those things and go through it very fast and then do it again. You see, it's up to you to how to use it. And you can use it over and over and over again until you feel that your intuitive side is reliable and accurate. It takes work. It's not a trivial thing to develop, but this course, I think, is the best way for you to do that. For the price of it, it does not price it into the wealthy people only. This is a reasonable price that we have on this course.
Thank you, Tom, for detailing all of the important aspects of exploring consciousness. It's quite a privilege, I think, for people to own this course that is a culmination of all of your experience in consciousness. And I think a lot of people will get a lot out of it. It's one of the, if not the best, I have to say, course on consciousness and the paranormal out there.
Yes, I think it is as well. And it's more informative than any of the others. It actually explains what you're doing and why it works. And there's other courses that you can get that'll explain kind of how to do it, but they really don't have any idea of why it works. Here you'll actually understand it, which makes it easier to accomplish it because you'll have a logical sense of what you're doing.
There's a lot of talented, intuitive people out there who can do these things, psychic ability, healing, or remote viewing, but none of them have the framework of the why you can do these things and who you really are. So thank you, Tom, so much for detailing this for us.
You're welcome, Donna. I and MBT Events hope you like this video.